Hey everyone, welcome to Zen and Tech, our weekly podcast focused on centering your inner geek and using technology to help deal with the stresses of your connected life. I'm Rene, and your host for the show is Georgia. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that while Georgia is the therapist, she's not your therapist. Everything said or implied on this episode is for informational entertainment purposes only and shouldn't be taken in any way as a replacement for personal, professional care. How's it going, Georgia?
It's good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It is Halloween. There's a moon in the sky, so things are right up your alley, I imagine.
Yeah, things are good. Things are good. A lot in the air, though, I have to say.
Yeah, you thought it was a good idea to maybe take a step back and do another review episode. It's been a while since we did one, and we've covered an awful lot of ground.
Yes, we have. I think that also, just to let you know, I'll mention again, but I believe next week we'll do a question and answers. So if you have any questions for us, send them on to the show and we will cover them in next week's show.
You can Twitter them to @ZENandTech. You can email them to podcast@ZENandTech, or you can leave them as a comment to this show when it goes live on the blog. How's that?
Perfect.
It'd be funnier if we didn't give them a way to actually ask the questions.
We covered a lot of different things, and I think it's really important for us to deal with a review every now and then. Sorry, I'm just going to move my microphone a little bit closer.
Okay.
Hopefully that will make it a little better.
Yeah, much better.
Thank you. So I thought that it would be a good idea for us to kind of take a peek and come back through everywhere that we came through in the first. So we'll cover from the last time we did a review. Yeah.
Yep. So episode 13, Priority 1. And this was a weird week when we did this show because Nokia dumped Symbian, HP dumped WebOS hardware, which is still going on, and we maybe touch on that. Google bought Motorola, and Steve Jobs, who has since passed away, had just resigned from Apple. So it was a very stressful week in technology. And you kind of gave us a step back and told us to concentrate on ourselves and keeping ourselves going through it.
Right. And I think that one of the most important parts of that show, which I'll just kind of brush over quickly. So if it's something that you're not doing, you should definitely take a listen to the show and follow the homework, is that you know that you're not really taking care of yourself if you're not getting enough sleep, so 7.5 to 9 hours, if you're not eating properly, not having breakfast, or overeating or just getting fast food instead, and if you're not, doing something fun for you, such as exercise, doing a little shopping, just taking a break. You need to spend a few minutes at least, I would say at least a minimum of an hour every day doing something for you.
And, I was really guilty of that during the last couple of weeks because we had Steve Jobs passing away. We had the release of iOS 5. We had the iPhone 4S come out. I went straight from not sleeping because I was in the iPhone 4S lineup to the Singleton conference, which I got very little sleep, to trying to get my review done. And I did. I ended up living off fast food, not sleeping, and not at all taking care of myself. And it's amazing how you start justifying it in your own head. Oh, well, it's only for a few days. It's only for a week. If I can just get past this.
Yeah, and we can do that for a small period of time. But eventually, not only will it catch up with us, but we'll also start taking it out on everyone that's around us. And that's the selfish part about not taking care of yourself. Plus, your children, everyone else around you will take advantage of you, not respect you as much, and think that that's the status quo. And then you'll be angry and resentful and take it out on them. So everyone ends up suffering.
We talked about that before. It's that you think that you're doing something heroic, but like the people you work for, the people in your family, they just start to think that that's normal. And since no human can maintain that pace, once you crash, they kind of think that you're a failure at that point, that you're not doing what you used to do.
Or they think that that's what the average is that you can do, and they'll add more to your plate because that's what you do every day.
Yeah, that becomes the new normal.
You can't be a miracle worker unless there's any miracles.
Yeah.
I loved when Scotty said that. Why did you say it would take you 15 hours? It definitely wouldn't take you 15 hours. He's like, well, you can't be a miracle worker unless you're working miracles.
Ach, lad, you told them the real time. How are you going to get your reputation as a miracle worker?
So it's probably one of the most important things for us to do for ourselves is taking care of ourselves. So yeah, take a back read. It's a really good one.
And you went from that to, because like the thing I like about this show is that you don't just talk about all these things. You give us very precise, very actionable homework that we can do to try to work on them. And right from priority 1, you went into passive relaxation, sort of a way to force ourselves to take a little bit of time for ourselves.
Right. The good part about in this show is that we also had, we actually went through what passive relaxation was, all of the various things that it would help with. And I actually really love passive relaxation. It's just, I can really find it relaxes.
Can you just remind us what it is?
Passive relaxation is a mix. It's kind of in between just doing a breathing technique and going as far as meditation. It's in between the two. You listen to me and I would guide you through step-to-step ways of helping your body relax.
So when would you do passive relaxation as opposed to just a breathing technique or something as in-depth as meditation?
Great question, Rene. Passive relaxation is much longer to do. It's about 6 minutes, I think. At least for the reading of which I did. And there's many different ones, and you would use whichever one works for you. And so you would want to be able to do it somewhere where you can actually relax. You can shut yourself off for a minimum of 6 minutes. So before you go to bed or when you first wake up, in the middle before you do exercise, before you're going to do a great performance, perhaps before you're going to do a presentation.
A podcast, maybe?
Maybe that's what I should have done for the podcast. It was hard in the super suit.
Yeah.
And then you would want to make sure breathing you can do for us. It can take a couple of seconds, and you can actually have the benefits from doing some breathing techniques. The passive relaxation takes a little bit longer.
Are the benefits commensurately better because it takes longer? I mean, like if you do breathing, it kind of helps reduce your stress level. But if you invest the time in passive relaxation, do you get something more out of it?
It's a little bit deeper and a little bit stronger, and in that method that it should last for a longer period of time. Of course, if you are really good at doing your breathing techniques and you can hold that with you, as with anything, the more that you do it, the better that you get at it, the more that your body will reap the benefits from that. And stress is, this, you can use passive relaxation for migraine headaches, pain management, insomnia, anger, aggression, mourning. It really does help with lots of different things.
Okay. And is it something that it's kind of generic, or do you do different kinds of passive relaxation for different circumstances?
There are many different types of manners of passive relaxation and different focuses depending on what you would need. Everyone, if you hold your anxiety in different parts of your bodies or different ways, there's also active relaxation, which I don't believe that we've actually covered as of yet, but we will.
It's one of our pending episodes, of which we have several.
I know. Yes, along with marriage, helping baby sleep, dating, keeping a relationship, icebreakers, getting a girl to, come hither towards you. All of the other things that we're how to woo a girl.
I have heard that hither is much better than yawn.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. And it's just a nice way in helping your body fully reap the benefits of relaxing, because it goes through each part of your body and you focus yourself on fully relaxing it.
All right, so you went from there into talking about goal setting, and this kind of came about because you have this focus on actionable items, on the homework, on getting things done. So you started to break down for us how you can set the goals, what kind of goals to set, and how to have reasonable expectations from those goals.
I find that a lot of people will set goals that are too large, too lofty, and too demanding upon themselves, so they never actually do them, or they're never able to feel proud of the goals of which they set. So we went about finding out how to set goals that would be small enough so that you would be able to attain them, a challenge so they're still fun to be able to do, and to know that even though you're trying to set a goal, the most important part is that you set a goal and that you attempted to do it, that it's not actually the end result, because that's what happens is that people put all of their emphasis on the end result, and I think that leaves them selling themselves short.
There's a fear of failure, so you may not. Like you've mentioned this before, that there are several things that cause our bubbles to get smaller and smaller, and if we start fearing failure, we start to attempt fewer things, and then it gets smaller again, right?
Yes, definitely, definitely, and it's an unfair thing to do to yourself, because you're not able, and I find that a lot of people, and this is something that I find exceptionally sad but exceptionally pervasive, is that most people, when they do something and you say to them, wow, that was really great that you did X, they'll say, yeah, but,
yeah,
and cut themselves short onto what they did. And
nothing after the but counts.
Exactly.
If J-Lo has taught us anything, it's that nothing after the but counts.
And I was saying that was Game of Thrones, but, not the J-Lo part. But
no, but it's true, because we kind of diminish our achievements. We've been taught to not, I guess you don't want to be a core narcissist about it, but you also don't want to demean, dismiss, and devalue your own attainments.
And you want to make sure that it is one goal, you try to attempt it, and you don't allow your own worries about how exactly you're going to go about it, because you're going to cut it into small, little, tiny, manageable pieces. If it seems daunting or you feel stressed thinking about it, cut it up into a even smaller piece. And just take a few minutes to do it. And then you leave it go, and that's good enough.
But you also made a point that it should challenge us, that it should help us grow as a person, that we should use it as an opportunity to expand ourselves.
Yes, and I think that you should be proud of just that life change in order to achieve it. I don't think that we really spend enough time being proud that we are trying to change who we are and doing something towards it. Complacency, again, we talk about complacency leads to death. Doing just the same thing every day definitely does increase the chances of becoming depressed.
Yeah, and and you also made a very good point that if 2 steps are scary, start with 1. If going 2 miles is scary, start with a mile. Just make sure that you start with something.
Right, and every mile starts with a step. So just take a step and be happy that you took a step.
And that it's relative, right? For some people, they might think that taking a step is not a big deal. Everyone has a different sort of a challenge that faces them, and just because your challenge might seem smaller than someone else's, A, you don't know how hard that is for the other person, but B, they don't realize how hard that is for you.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into our next set that we had covered, which was negative thinking.
Yeah.
It kind of deals with why a lot of our goal setting we're not able to feel proud of. I think that ability to be able to be proud of what you have accomplished is so important for our self-esteem. And if you allow yourself to be bullied and look down upon what you do, how are you ever going to want to achieve something else?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you went through sort of the kind of pervasive negative thoughts that we have, and why these things build up inside us, which is interesting because there is a reason to have these thoughts. It's just kind of when they go out of control, they start to affect us.
It's interesting, actually, if I can take a little bit of a side note, but when I'm going back through all of the different podcasts that we did, and say we go back to number 13, and that was when Steve Jobs had actually stopped being CEO. And it's very interesting how these things bring back your state of mind and your moods and your things that you were feeling when these podcasts were done. So that's also really interesting.
Yeah. It was nice in that you juxtaposed it. So episode 16 was negative thinking, and episode 17 was sort of what you do about it, which was positive counter statements.
Right, and they're really important. So if you have a very strong critical self, and interestingly enough, we are often very defensive of our critical self, and we will use 2 excuses for them. One is that it's true. Yeah. People say, yeah, but it's true. And so does that mean that you can make fun of someone on the street because they are, say, overweight or short or not very good at math? Does just because that they are that makes it okay? And someone will say, no, of course not. I would never do that. But you do it to yourself. And they're like, yeah, but that doesn't really count because...
Because for me, it's true.
Because it's true. So then I can be able to do it. And they also think that this is going to encourage them.
There was a good saying, I forget who said it, but that you shouldn't ask if something is true, but you should ask whether it's useful.
Yes, and if it's going to inspire greatness out of you and or not. You can kick yourself a whole bunch of times. In the end, you're just going to get a lot of bruises.
Yeah.
But if you see someone else on the ground, you would offer them a hand and help them up. And that's what you need to do to yourself. You need to offer yourself a hand and help yourself up. If you can't be a friend to yourself, like there's something seriously wrong. You need to take a look at that.
Yeah.
And the first step is actually figure out that you're doing it. Realize that you are doing it.
That you're being a bully.
And I would actually, if you have, and this, they're very hard to get rid of, I would take a look again back at these two podcasts together in conjecture with each other and take a look through it. But we'll overview it really quickly. But yeah, you need to say, these are the things that I say to myself. Journal it out and take a look at it.
So how do the counters, can you give us an example of how the counter statements, or the positive counter statements, are used to overcome the negative thinking?
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help ourselves out. So the first thing you would do is, well, is this true? So say that I am short. So I'd be like, yeah, I am short. Is it always true? Yeah, I'm always short. And then I would say, well, how does this help me by, insulting myself because it is short? It doesn't. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to help me. It's not going to do anything. It just makes me feel bad for being short. And then you would say, well, what if my friend came up to me and said, you know what, this is really sad. I'm exceptionally short. What would I say to them?
You're not short compared to a gully dwarf.
Wow, you look like a gully dwarf. No, I would say, you know what does that matter? That's not going to stop you from doing anything unless you allow it to stop yourself from doing something. And so then you have to ask yourself that question is, why can I help out a friend, be a good friend to someone else, and I can't do it to myself?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So we flowed on from there to episode 18, which was the importance of play, because we were kind of on the negative thinking, the downers, and how to circumvent that. You wanted to get us back to that childlike quality that we had before all this negative thinking started.
I love this one. Can I say that? I love the importance of play. Ahead. I do. I think that one is this kind of fits in with the putting yourself first. And I love the fact that we need to spend a little bit more time in that childlike sense of wonder, and especially for those people that have a difficult time dealing with their inner child, or say that they don't have one, or they're too busy being adults. Well, what fun is that? That's not our natural state. Our natural state is actually learning through playing. Things don't actually have to be tedious and horrific in order for us to feel like we are doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned trying to find something every day, or at least during the week, that we could have fun, that we could play at. I mean, I was surprised. A lot of people told us they just like to swing, like to go to the park and swing. People of all ages, all types, they like to swing, and that's good. Other people, wanted to rediscover the play in their work, because some people, when it becomes a job, you stop considering it as fun. You forget why it was fun, why you got into it to begin with. But if you can remember that, suddenly it's not work anymore.
Right, and someone from the chat room had said that even when I was a child, I wasn't a child. Well, then this is some stage that you actually really need, especially need to go back to, is to heal your inner child and deal with it and go through the different stages that you should have gone through and keep it with you. Don't think that because you were parentified, which is what happens, is the parentified child is the person that had to take on a lot of responsibility, had to take care of other people that were perhaps sick, ill, or incapable of actually being the parents. So you as a child then would take on this role and exemplify it and do it, but in the end you probably ended up certain amount resentful because of that. Yeah. So especially go back to those times and think about what would be fun. So take off your shoes and walk, if it's a safe place, in the grass with your shoes off, or play in the sand, or look at the stars, swing on a swing. I've realized that I cannot spin on a swing as quickly as not. I get dizzy actually relatively fast now, which is funny after what we videotaped today. Anyways.
You also made a really good point that play helps you deal, if you have perfectionistic tendencies, because play often is not as serious when you fail, you can kind of learn to counteract those perfectionistic tendencies through play.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Rene. It's true that you have to let go of being a perfectionist if you're going to play and have fun.
Yeah, so it is on so many levels. It was such a good episode. So have some fun, relax, and watch that one. That's a great way to play. Put on your ZENandTECH and go outside and enjoy.
Enjoy and relax, and know that this is actually a manner of healing who you are as a person. And we often think that play, because it is something childlike, is silly and we should be ashamed of it. And I think the exact opposite. I have seen a lot of wondrous, happy, amazing things happen through play, and enjoy play. So play with your kids, but if you want to do something, why do you allow yourself or your worry about what other people are going to think stop you from doing something that you might enjoy?
Just look at the Dalai Lama. The man is laughing. I mean, the man he's got such a contentment about him. I mean, and today we were shopping for costumes. We did iPad Live earlier in costumes. If you didn't watch that, go see what we dressed as. No spoilers. And we were laughing our heads off, and we were like, "This is feeding our inner child. This was feeding our soul." It was fantastic.
Yeah, actually, the costume that I had, and we did a little video skit with it, and I actually remember doing the exact same thing when I was a child, like 100,000 times.
Nice.
So I got to relive something that I enjoyed from my childhood through the podcast.
Yeah, it's powerful memory. Hey. Memories are and they get activated in so many ways. Like, we just think that we see something or hear something, but there's smells, there's actions, there's songs, there's all these things that bring back those moments. It's really amazing.
And I think that a lot of times we do let ourselves or our worry about what other people would think if we so did something stop us from enjoying. Please, every time that happens to you, that's the person that you can be critical about and say, you know what, I don't have to listen to you. I'm just going to allow myself to enjoy this, and it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And
they're talking in the chat room about how you can't go trick-or-treating when you're a certain age, but you can they have Halloween parties. You get to dress up, and you get adult versions of treats, and it's, there's always a way. If you want to feed your inner child, you will find a way.
Right. Exactly. And when do you know that you are going too far? And that's when you are infringing upon someone else and making someone else feel bad and or small. So if you're not doing that, go ahead and enjoy. You
should not go back to your childhood where you were taunting people. That's just not right.
Right. That would be being indulgent and being harsh on someone else.
Different episode. Our next episode was, again, some of our more powerful episodes always take us by surprise. And in the first set, I think it was the third or fourth episode, we did death dealing, which was really unexpected, but was really one of our better episodes. And this time we did one following the death of Steve Jobs. We did an iPad Live called Requiem. And then right afterwards, we did a ZENandTECH called Consolation. And instead of dealing with death ourselves, you tried to help us figure out how to help someone who was going through it. So it wasn't a death in our family. It was trying to help someone go through a death in theirs, which can be an incredible challenge.
And I think very, very difficult. We don't have in Western civilization, we don't have a lot of straightforward rituals of how to treat or deal with people when they are going through an extreme time of mourning. And that's very difficult. So this helps us deal with that and helps us have different sets of tools of which we can use to make those people feel cared about and understood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because we're not prepared for it. We're not taught what to say. It's sort of it comes across us as unexpectedly and sometimes brutally as if it was happening to us, but because it's not us, we don't we're not the ones who are, it's weird to say, we're not the ones being focused on. We have to, and you made good points, like don't do what you think you'd want. Make sure you try to find out what they'd want. Just because you want to talk doesn't mean they do. Just because you want to have people around you doesn't mean they do.
Right. I actually, when I'm in a period of mourning, I like to be, completely on my own, and I'm in my own little cave. But even if someone like that, there are things that you can do, which would be the small tasks that are difficult for someone else to deal with when they're going through a time of mourning, such as helping them get some food, doing menial different tasks, picking up their kids, saying, I'll take the kids out for a few hours so you can rest or sleep, laundry, vacuum cleaning, helping with maybe their parents that they need to usually go and visit, doing their cards, their thank you cards for anyone that might have sent them something. And the hard parts, like what do you do with someone's things and clothing after they have gone?
And
that's
you mentioned
really
like
difficult.
Busy work, routine, things that can keep their mind, their hands occupied, their mind occupied.
Yeah, those are the things that they might help go through for themselves. So you could actually take a look at our episode on death dealing and give them some suggestions themselves on how, if they're having a difficulty going through the days, of how they can mourn. And I also always mention when someone's going through a death is that there's a very interesting phenomenon that people almost feel guilty. And it's strange actually when you think about it, but people often feel guilty for being happy when someone has passed away.
Yeah.
And it's a strange phenomenon because you would think that that your loved one wants you to be happy, so why would you feel guilty after for laughing or being able to have a happy moment? That's what they want. Yet, for some reason, our Western society has caused us to actually have a feeling of guilt instead of having a feeling of relief and happiness that our loved one would want for us.
It's interesting. And then you went from there and because this was basically a communications challenge, and you decided to step back and do a greater episode on communication in general, basically the tools that you can use to become better at communication.
Yeah, and just be able to. It's very interesting. We talk all the time with people, but often we are not really there listening or not really there caring for the manner in which we interact with everyone, and it's so important that way. We can make someone else's life a little bit easier, a little bit happier, and a little bit more positive from just a simple smile, a thoughtful comment, or we can actually make things worse.
That's really
exactly
good advice,
the same
Georgia.
manner. Thank you, Rene. It's so thoughtful of you for complimenting me.
No, but I mean, it's true. Oftentimes, you can actually sometimes feel yourself not listening, just waiting for your next chance to speak.
I think that we also are so worried how people are going to look at us. We're always trying to be witty and smart, and sometimes we let that go so far that we've forgotten that we're interacting with someone else and our actual role is to be there. And I think that the best mode of communication is when both people leave and feel like they have gotten something positive from the interaction. And that means that you can even have a discourse or have an argument or disagree on something, but it doesn't mean that you have to take something from the other person. It's not all about winning. It's all about who you are as a person and what have you done in order to, how can I put it, get your point across without taking the other person's right to disagreement.
Well, you made an excellent point. You said, like, what do you want to get out of the conversation? Do you want to win and be alone, or do you want to have a productive discussion and be part of a relationship?
And I think that you need to think backwards. What do you want from interacting with this person? Do you want them to think that you're smart and witty but have no personal relations? Or do you want them to think, I enjoy being around this person. They make me feel like I can do more than I could before I spoke to them.
They empower you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, I mean, you gave a list of things and people can listen back to the episode, but you were talking about why it was important, the difference between positive, neutral, and negative interactions, and how you can accomplish them. And some of the ones that I liked was just to breathe and to pause during a conversation.
Someone had mentioned that it's not always polite to pause. The pause part I mentioned was actually for when you were asked something that you didn't know the answer to. You can take your time before you reply instead of having a hasty reply that might not be as true to what you want to say.
Yeah, you can think about it.
You can take your time, and you can even say, I'm not really sure about the answer to that. Give me a moment. I'm going to think about that for a second. Or if you're really angry, it's exceptionally good. Exceptionally good is the wrong. It's too weak of a statement. If you're angry, you should pause.
I remember the TV show Ally McBeal, and there was one of the main characters, the Biscuit, and he would clench his nose and just say, I'm taking a moment. He'd put up a finger and say, I'm taking a moment. And it was meant in jest, but I thought it was smart because after that moment, he would usually come back with the absolute perfect thing to say.
I know we're the chat room's mentioning about people that can come up with something witty and cute and be able to do it at a moment's notice. It is actually exceptionally important and impressive, but you don't need to have that in order to make someone else feel important and well. Looking at them, listening to what they've said, and instead of just listening to what they say, think about, why did this person say this to me? What are they trying to show me? And then highlight that instead of highlighting the thing that they might be trying to hide. Yes, you can know something. You don't have to act that you're so smart because you noticed that they chose not to mention something. That's actually a little bit rude and pushy. But if you can say, wow, I guess that means that your parents must be very proud that you were able to work so hard and go to school and achieve what you wanted to. That would make someone feel better instead of saying, it must have been really horrible not getting into the school of your choice.
And what's also interesting is that you can see this. Like, there's certain shows that I've stopped watching because you can see that the host. When I talk to somebody, I already know. I already know what I know. I want to find out what they know. That's how I learn. That's how I improve. And you can see some hosts in big media who just want to make jokes over the person, make fun of them, and I never get. They ask questions, but then never let the person answer them, and I found them so frustrating and so diminishing that I just I stopped watching.
Sometimes some people, for whatever reason, take up a certain amount of space in a conversation and don't allow other people to participate, and it's a bad habit. And often it's because that they're too self-absorbed to see outside of themselves. So take your time and spend more time listening than you do speaking. This was really hard for me, and when I had to become a therapist, there was even times when I would be like, oh, I know the answer. Well, it's not, and I had to figure out that it's not about knowing the answer, and that's not the process.
Oh, me, pick me, I know, pick me.
Me. I know why you do that. That's not the point. The point is for someone else to realize why they do it, because if they don't realize, if I'm just giving them a rote do A, B, and C, they'll do that, but they won't get why it's important. So we have to work together to find out why that's important.
Yeah, we seldom appreciate things that we don't earn.
I like that, Rene. Yeah. I like that being said that way. Yeah, I agree.
That's true. And that kind of brings us to where we are here, our second review episode. I like the way you stack these, Georgia. It's still a very like we do have the occasional special episode like we mentioned, but I like the way that you're stacking these, that they are very much part of a journey, that I can see where we're starting and step by step we're moving towards a better place.
I wanted to, and I don't know if we always achieved that, but I wanted to keep with the things that would help the most people at once, and we do have a lot of different requests for specialty shows. And the reason that we have tried to hold off, though we do the requests that I think that we can at the time, is that I would like for the things that are more specialty, so say when we're going to do it on school and different learning styles and the way to get the most out of a different specific experience will be after, but the basics of how to keep yourself centered and get the most out of life, squeeze the most out of life, will be the first ones that we will deal with.
We're building the foundation before we're designing the drapes.
Yeah, but we'll design the drapes too. So we will be dealing with. We'll get there. And if you have any suggestions, please do send them in. We love to hear it, and we love to hear about where your journeys are, which episodes spoke to you, which ones didn't, or which homework you didn't find was helpful or useful as well. We do try to make each episode slightly better.
The one thing I've discovered is that I don't always, and I don't know if this is intentional, but not every week's homework seems to resonate with me. But I'll find for sometimes, like a couple weeks ago, I found something that we talked about 8 weeks ago, very, very applicable that week. Like, it took me a while to get where you had us going, and I almost like went back and did it over again because it suddenly made much more sense.
I agree, and everything is at its own pace. How did they say about painting your own canvas? When the canvas is ready to be painted, it'll be painted. So you take each step as it comes, and that's okay. You will be on your journey as it needs to be.
I expect it when I see it.
So hopefully we can be part of your journey.
Yeah. Anything you want to tease for upcoming weeks?
Well, please send in any questions that you may have. These can even be specialty questions, such as you're having difficulty studying, so we can go through some different studying tips. You could be difficulties that you're having with raising children, having people sleep, marriage issues, dealing with panic attacks, specific phobias, things that you're not sure but catch you off guard, or places in your life that you're not able to relax at. Perhaps you're always feeling driven. Perhaps you're not sleeping well. And we'll go through those specifics as they are. It would be good, instead of, you can come to the podcast and ask your question, but because they go through so quickly, if you have an important question, we will mention if you would like it to be anonymous or not, and we will definitely abide by that. I will try not to mention names unless it is
You will not give out your physical address.
No, even if you want that. And we will go through it after. So send them in as early as you can so that we can choose that. We might not be able to go through all questions, so please hand them in as early as possible. And if you show up to the chat room, you can also ask your questions then. Awesome.
Georgia, where can we find out more about you?
You can find me on Twitter at GeorgiaTIPB, and also you can find me on the website ZENandTECH, oneword.tv.
Cool. And you can find me at Rene Ritchie. You can find both of us at ZENandTECH. You can email us at podcast@ZENandTECH, or leave a comment when the show goes live. ZENandTECH is part of the Mobile Nations Network. You can find all our shows at mobilenations.com/shows, including ZENandTECH, Super Functional, iPad Live, iPhone Live, Iterate, Android Central, Crackberry, and many, many more. So please check that out. This episode of ZENandTECH was brought to you by the Android Central Store, your one-stop shop for everything Droid, Galaxy, Evo, Thunderbolt, and dozens of devices. Check out the batteries, cases, cables, headsets, and much, much more at shopandroid.com. Tell them Lloyd sent you. And we will be back here next week, George.
Great.
Same bat time.
Well, hopefully everyone will too. Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right. Good night, everybody.